A very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome you all. I'm sorry for the delay. We were just trying to figure out that everybody's available for you at one moment. So sorry for that. We have to keep you waiting, but we welcome you all for then another important and exciting discussion which Vicky is organizing now with the help of our partners. And this is as part of the thought leadership session. And the important topic which we have taken today is on cybersecurity, which is basically themed on something smells fishy. So the name would obviously it would be exciting for you. We have a very good set of speakers whom I introduce you later. I'll just say that you all are aware of, and we have lots of members who have joined in that as Vicky, an Apex Chamber established in 1927, a 93-year-old body is working across sectors, and we take up the issues which is very important for our members and which would really benefit them. We all know that this pandemic has actually affected the I would say across all sectors and even economy, but also it has come up with an opportunities that our traditional industry has moved to a digital transformation, which could have happened in multiple years, have happened in months. So that is something which has come as a, I would say, an important advantage for the good of everybody. And this is something which helps to even continue this new normal in coming days, even when this pandemic gets over. And we really hope that this really gets better and better with the help of the digital transformation process, which Vicky, along with his partners and along with the government, has started. So now coming on the subject on cybersecurity, this is not new to anybody, but with the digital transformation taking up a lead role, this has become again important. We know the number of lakhs and crores of losses which has happened, and I would say it has been amplified in a couple of months only when we have gone into digital. There have been various research studies which have proved the attacks and the numbers it has increased in last 4 months or 5 months, I would say, and even something which we have to be very mindful while going further in future. So keeping that in mind and having a further great discussion, we have joined hands with our partners. We are thankful to our partner EC Council and Advisol for supporting this initiative of Vicky. We have the members who are participants who are participating from across sectors who join us today. Thank you all. We really look forward to have a good discussion with all the eminent speakers who have joined us today. So with us today, we have Mr. Prahlad Adhikari. He is a founding director at Advisol Private Limited. Mr. Vikas Kapoor, Vice President, Cybersecurity Voice, Vodafone Shared Services. Vikas has 20 plus years of work across diverse experience in cybersecurity, technology, risk management and compliance, information security, auditing, global CIO office setup, and post-M&A offshore software development center setup. And then we have Mr. Maninder Pal Singh. He's the Global Executive Director, EC Council Global Services. He's a cyber risk professional with more than 15 years of experience in domains like cybersecurity, information security, risk management, security operations, vulnerability management, information security, incident management, and vendor risk management. So many things to learn from you all. So thank you all for taking out time and joining us today, and of course partnering with Fugitsu for this important initiative. We look forward to a really insightful discussion. With this, I now invite Mr. Prahlad Adhikari for his introductory remarks and to take forward the proceedings of the session. Over to you, Mr. Prahlad.
Thank you so much, Sarika ji, for the introduction as well as for setting up the context and also enlightening the audience about digital transformation and that role FICCI is playing in creating a vibrant and secure business environment in the country. In a connected world that we live in today, cybersecurity has become an important and critical aspect of not only our professional lives, but lately our personal lives as well. That is what we have seen during COVID time. And this is also because the human body is slowly becoming an integral part of emerging technology landscape. And that is what, as you rightly said, digital is creating a lot of opportunities, lot of challenges also. And that is why we are here to discuss about cybersecurity and its both sides of cybersecurity. Wearable devices, automation, AI, and a lot of development in cognitive space has added to this dimension. 5G is happening, and other revolutionary developments in communication technology could open new challenges from security perspective, which we might not be able to deliberate at the moment, but we will have to sort of keep eyes on that. Few surveys, as you rightly said, indicated that ransomware and phishing attacks jumped almost fourfold in recent months. Government establishments, leading technology companies, banks, manufacturing units, universities, and even healthcare companies, all of them have been victims of these attacks. And this is despite the fact that most of the establishment have some security systems in place. Many of them have elaborate arrangements. Some of them are new ones. Um, and a study has suggested that almost 95% of all cyber attacks had an element of human error or lack of awareness. And today's this thought leadership session, therefore, is focused on awareness and touches upon the human-centric cybersecurity aspect into it. As you introduced, we have with us today two distinguished guests from the industry who have deep expertise and experience in the subject. So I would first like to sort of invite, ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker in today's session, Mr. Vikas Kapoor. You just heard his introduction from Sarika Ji, a Vice President in Cybersecurity practice at Vodafone's Global Capability Center. He leads probably the largest team of cybersecurity experts in the country with more than 2 decades of global experience in this domain. His expertise, his best practices. So let us turn to Vikas for his talk on what is that he has seen in the industry working with companies like Vodafone, who are pioneers in communication technology in other places and earlier organizations. And what are some of the best practices that he has implemented and some of the lessons that he has learned, which he can share with us for the benefit of the audience. Over to you, Vikas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prahlad and Sarika, for the introductions. It's interesting. Sarika mentioned, that digital IT is there, and you talked about, relation to human body. And I would say, the cybersecurity is the immune system, therefore, for that body when we're talking about, right? So probably with that note, we'll jump on to sharing some of my experience. See, I think in the world of cybersecurity, if we look at it, the concept in our world can be seen from two sides. One we call what is the offensive side of the world, and the other is the defensive side of the world. Now, to share some initial context-setting thoughts in what's happening on the offensive side of security, the bad guys, and then we'll talk a little bit on the defensive side, the good guys on the call. On the offensive side, there are a stream of people who are not so great, right? So there are rent-a-hacker kind of services available. So as little as for $100, you could probably look at compromising somebody's system. There are organized hacking groups who operate as a pack of wolves, and they collectively work across the globe to target organizations, individuals, states, etc. And equally serious are the nation-sponsored attacks as well, right? So the Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. I think there's a lot of action happening where there are now cyber armies in place. So things that we would have probably read as fiction are quite real on the offensive side of security. The motives for the offensive side of people is actually a lot. There are a lot of motives, right? So historically, we've known about data, and the one misuse case, as we say, is always selling the customer data. But in reality, what we are observing that the misuse cases have actually gone a lot higher. Espionage is one major area. Intellectual property is one target. We've seen interference in elections now because of these areas, crypto mining. And while it might sound, again, fiction, but we've sort of observed in the industry that there are cyber weapons which are being targeted, and a lot of organizations end up being, pure guinea pigs on this. So that's the offensive side of reality. And as I mentioned, all these comments are my personal opinions and not necessarily the org I represent. On the defense side of the industry is all of us on the call. Now, if we see historically, the motives were money, and this is where the banking financial industry was more a target. Telcos were a target because of them being the super highway connecting all the different parts of the world. But now, whether you're a hospital, a critical infrastructure, whether you're a tech company, whether you're an IoT company, you school, hospital, pretty much you're on the target list. Now, as an industry professional, I think all of us have really upped our game as well, and we are giving a good fight. There are more regulations now. There are more and more security products. There are a lot of standards and practices which are moving. As we also see, there are a lot of startups and investments happening. So there's a lot of good fight between the good and the bad, which is increasing. Now, as in any fight, it's the people is the most important part, right? Which is how strong is my team versus somebody else's team. And this is where the essence of today's discussion comes around, people. I think security awareness is not a new word anymore. Depending on organizations that we would have seen umpteen number of campaigns in these areas related to security awareness. Now, if we look at the dictionary meaning of security awareness in the first place, it revolves around knowledge, consciousness, and interest. So does my organization have the knowledge, the consciousness level, and the interest to protect from the not so bad guys, the bad guys we talked about? But I can share, being in this industry for some time, that while security awareness is what we are talking about, the levels that we need is actually at the security vigilance level, not just awareness. It is very important to not just have the knowledge or the conscious or interest, but to be careful and looking out for danger, right? And this is where the currently called security awareness in the corporate world becomes a center stage element. Now, historically, I think bringing some insights, awareness have been about have strong passwords, don't click on nasty links. I think they continue to add value. But I can with confidence say that when you see it from the side of hackers or attackers, they don't need your passwords anymore. They essentially do technical things like passing the hash and stuff like that. But yes, if you click on the links, then the compromises happen. So I think as an industry, it's very important for all of us to ensure that our organizations understand 4 basic things, right? Why should people secure in the first place? What should be secured? How should we secure? And then what do we do in case a breach happens? Because chances are breaches will happen. Now, when we look at from a security awareness standpoint, I think there is a good amount of, or a reasonable amount of investment that organizations make in security awareness programs. Chances are that you would have received, an email or, a campaign or a newsletter or, some competitions which would have been experienced in the organization. Is that sufficient? I think that's a big question for all of us to ask as industry professionals. Is that all, or do we need more, right? My personal recommendations for the audience and my co-speakers is, I think it's important for us as an industry to do a little bit of more deep dive related to security awareness as an area and see, sort of analyze how much are we doing and is that enough or not. I can share what some of the leading organizations are doing as of today with regards to running security awareness programs already for a couple of years, I would say. Number one, I think we've seen that some leading organizations have started to, first of all, audit the security awareness program itself, which is, an example in that audit area is to look at the budget as an area. Do we have the right budgets? Do we allocate the right budgets in the first place? Some organizations have also looked at over and above the cybersecurity team's budget to promote awareness. The budgets have been increased and given to the learning and development, because it's not just a IT team issues or a cyber security team issues. In the security awareness slash vigilance areas, there are a lot of high impacting engagements that have come in, multiple channels of using videos, of using gaming, which interests the audience or the participants as well. Some leading organizations use the intensive capture the flag events, not just for their tech teams, but also customize those programs to essentially educate the non-IT team members as well. So therefore, if you see, there becomes a very essential need to have, comprehensive platforms around awareness in the first place, because while there is an investment that is required in these areas in the organization, there's also a very strong need to consistently measure the awareness slash vigilance levels. And this is where, the comprehensive platforms come into place. Leading organizations have gone far as well of introducing certain code of conducts related to as simple as make sure we don't click the wrong links types, right? So there's a lot going on. One interesting thought I would also want to share is often, security awareness is seen as something for the non-IT people, right? And I think I can share by my personal experience, there is a lot to see and do even in the pure IT areas, right? Generally, a perception is security is for the security professional, not necessarily for an IT person who's probably a database administrator or your Active Directory administrator or an app developer. I think that's where there's an opportunity for us as an industry to spend a little bit more and look at leveraging the available knowledge in the industry, which is a bare minimum, or we could call a common denominator of security knowledge. And there are interesting certifications that are available in the industry to definitely leverage, not just for security professional, as I said, but also for an IT professional as a whole. That said, I think I would sum it probably saying the same thing, that I think we've come a long way in giving a good, reasonable fight now to the bad guys. But I can also tell you that it is only increasing from here on. Yeah, and therefore to leverage what's available in the industry as a whole. So with that comment, Prahlad, I think I've shared my thoughts and would like to sort of share this back with you. Over to you, Prahlad.
Excellent, Vikas. Thank you so much. You sort of said that there's an offensive side of it and there's a defensive side of it, right? So this just like a war. And other thing that you said is the hackers, I think the opposition is far more innovative and the hardworking, and which we have to be aware of. And also awareness is just a starting point. We'll have to be far more vigilant in our approach. And also we will have to sort of audit whatever we are doing ourselves so that we are ahead of the game. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you with some questions from the audience. And before that, let's go to our second speaker for the day, Maninder Pal Singh, which Sarika had already introduced. Maninder Pal Singh is Executive Director with EC Council Global Services, 15 plus years of experience. EC Council is a pioneer in cybersecurity education and certification. So they have till now certified more than 237,000 cybersecurity professionals across the globe. With that, I would sort of go to Maninder Pal Singh for his presentation on the cybersecurity awareness and where we go from here. And what is that EC Council is doing? What is that they have in offer for the member organizations of FICCI and other people who are interested in this as a practice? Maninder Pal Singh, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Parad, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Vikas, for setting the stage. Very, very good words over there. And as Parad said, let me share my slides. I'd like to talk about one of my favorite topics, which relates to fishing. I don't like fishing. I don't like the other fishing as well. I like to eat a fish, but I don't like to get fished, right? So let me get it straight. Now, when we say that there's something fishy here, we are referring to what's happening around the world. And as we've realized that there is a menace of fishing, which is catching up. And as Vikas beautifully said, it's sort of a continuous war going between the bad and the good guys. And there's a lot to be done by us to keep defending ourselves. As they say, they have to only win once, and we have to win every time when we are defending, right? So with that, we're going to talk about the world of fishing, smishing, what that does to us, because the world has gone beyond fishing now, and we're going to talk about it in a bit. And lastly, of course, vaccine and cure. No, we are not talking about COVID only. The vaccine is there, thankfully, and it's going on well, the vaccination drive, but we need a vaccine and cure for cyber attacks, and especially the ones through social engineering. A bit about me, I think I've been introduced, but I still had a nice picture of me. I thought I'll just put it here. And for those who've not heard, I'll restate the whole thing, or maybe I'll skip it this time. I'll just go ahead. Okay, we're talking about phishing attacks. Balaji just said that 95% plus cyber attacks are triggered through some human error, which is correct. There are a lot of studies that say some say 90%, some say 91%, but all of them are saying more than 90% cyber attacks are due to phishing, wishing, smishing, or any other such human error. And that's because the technology advancements have helped the cybersecurity professionals protect companies on the technology front, but then we have people, process, technology. We've got the three pillars, right? People, unfortunately, happen to be sometimes, or rather, if we see the numbers, the weakest link here. And by tricking the people, the bad guys are able to circumvent all the security controls we have with the beautiful solutions. Now, when cyber attacks happen, well, 90% of them through phishing, that's supposed to be bad. And we all understand why it's bad, because there are a lot of bad impacts to the businesses, reputation, legal, financial, even psychological damage to the company. And of course, business disruption is a given. So there are many reasons we don't want cyber attacks. Now, while the situation was already bad and it's not improving, they are increasing the level of attacks in terms of phishing. COVID-19 came in. And when we were bracing as a world against the virus, what we saw was the hackers were doing what they're at best. It's only that they multi-folded the attacks. They started increasing number of attacks, and while all of us were working from home because we couldn't go to office, the hackers actually had no change because they usually work from home. So they rather got easier fruits to pluck, right? So we had a lot of people who were not behind the firewalls or the other safety mechanism of the company offices, people who were more vulnerable psychologically. And then we saw so many attacks happening, so much so that even they say some of the studies said in the underground markets, the phishing attack related malwares and attack vectors, they were all getting sold like hotcakes, and the prices were going up like 200% to 50% because all these hackers, the bad guys, were trying to procure these and hurt as many people as they could. So I think it's established phishing is bad, right? So it's certainly not a good thing. We all need to be very careful. We need to safeguard not only ourselves, but our companies against such attacks as well. So we need to ensure that people don't put in their passwords in the wrong places and get them stolen. So continuing on the COVID part, if as I said, it was already bad. If you see the trend, the number of phishing attacks hosted on HTTPS, the trend was on the up till Q3 2019. But when the COVID-19 hit, we saw the numbers, going off the roof. And for the first few months, it's actually 667% hike in the COVID-19 related phishing attacks. So it was bad, and it's continuing. Maybe not because already it's quite high. So every month on month, it's not 667%, but it's still going at a rapid pace. The tech companies like Google and others are protecting to the extent they can, but then there are always a few that skim through and reach the users. So I think we've been talking about phishing a lot, and I do understand that while this is a term, as was said, that it's very common these days, but just to be very clear, what we're talking about is it's a fraudulent communication usually sent through email and appears to be coming from a reputable source. What does it do? It usually steals data or installs a malware. So these are the key objectives of a phishing attack, if you have to look at it in that manner. How does it do that? We have various features or parameters or key ways of these phishing attacks. First is like link manipulation. Now it could be because instead of saying mail.yahoo.com, it can be yahoo.mail.com, though of course mail.com is also an authorized domain, but it's just an example. It's the sequencing could be changed, or it could, instead of com, it could be com. something. So there are various ways people are tricked into believing that they're going to a legitimate site when it is actually something which is not legitimate and hosted by the hackers. There could be hidden URLs. So you get emails and says click here, and people usually trust because it appears to be coming from a legitimate source. However, the click here may have a URL which is actually going to hurt them. Then there are misspelled URLs. The URL may look very similar to the one that is the real one, but it might have an extra I in the Twitter or an extra T over there. Now, when we talk about the website forgery, sometimes if you are searching for a website or you are typing the URL and you misspell, you might still get a very similar website. That's usually through domain spoofing or squatting. In domain squatting, we can have people replicating websites just like the real ones. Then the third one we've seen is phishing pop-ups when we have a site which the user is visiting, and then comes a pop-up from somewhere. It could be because of an adware installed on your machine or some other malware. It just sends a pop-up and you think it is coming from a legitimate website I'm visiting, but it is not. It is actually a phishing attack, and people end up putting in the details over there, which are obviously stolen. Now, phishing is something I think most of us have been familiar with, but the challenge today is with smishing and wishing. Now, this is something we need to understand because when we talk about smishing, now everybody's using smartphones, and on these smartphones, we have messages which can include links, hyperlinks. You click, and usually these are shortened URLs, right? Tiny URLs. Once you click on any of these, it could lead you to any website which may be not the one you think you're going to. It may install a malware to your phone, or it could land you to a fake page where it may ask you for credentials for your email, for your bank, or something. So smishing attacks are becoming more and more popular as we go by, and not with the good people, with the bad people, right? Wishing, one of my favorites now. So it's very interesting how wishing works these days. Uh, it's just a simple call, and it's very interesting to see how people can rely on something that appears to be coming from a legitimate source, and it can be very convincing. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So first one for phishing I'll give you is, we do quite a few simulations for our clients. We have a platform called Aware, which helps us do a lot of phishing simulations. And to make it realistic, we spoof the number. So a person, a CFO or somebody senior in the finance department could get a call from his boss. Now that could happen when the boss is traveling. He's in the flight, and which means the phone is switched off. So when the phone is switched off, yet that phone is apparently calling the CFO or the senior finance person a few times. It calls once, twice, thrice, and then we disconnect. We don't talk. The person tries to call back. He only gets a message, the phone is switched off. So when he tries to call back, the phone is switched off. The person gets a message saying, my phone just is out of battery. Can you please send me the latest quotation to this email ID immediately? Or can you transfer this money into this account immediately? Now, these kind of things people at times fall for because they believe it is coming from their boss or the CEO or whoever, because the person was trying to call you. Now, again, unless then of course, when the people fail such tests, we actually talk to them and we say, has your boss ever asked you such a favor on the phone or through SMS? If not, then what made you believe it was him? But because the number from which the call was coming on the phone appeared to be the one of your boss, you just trusted whatever came in the message next, which is something you need to be more alert about, suspicious about. So this is how we need to train our staff. Even phishing, one of the huge group of companies in India, we did a phishing attack campaign, simulation rather, and it was senior management. It was a group meeting where all the senior personnel had to come and attend, and we wrote an email to them from the head of group HR asking all of them to wear a red shirt for the meeting. Now, it so happened that the HR had also got this email, and he immediately reverted to everyone saying, guys, this is not me. Yet, more than half of the people were wearing a red shirt. So, I mean, of course, we didn't steal any data. It was just a simulation, just to show that how people can believe onto something which appears to be coming from somebody who's known. But we need to take these things with a pinch of salt, need to understand, need to be a bit more suspicious about such emails. Some of the real cases in California State Controller Office, one user clicked on a link and gave his user ID password. His email credentials were stolen. And then, of course, a lot of personal data went out. And this is something we've seen like hundreds and thousands of times. We click on one link, put in our email credentials, and poof, everything's gone. And then that email is used to send, that account is used to send further attack emails to other users in the company. So this is one of the most common phishing attacks. But phishing, as I was talking to you, is not only simulations. See, for once we are, if not ahead, at par with the bad guys, because we are training our clients, people, onto how to prevent phishing attacks on them. But these attacks are happening. A CEO of a UK energy firm, he got a call from his boss, and they even used a deepfake voice of the boss and asked him to transfer the money. The guy did it, and later on realized it was a fake call. The number was spoofed, the voice was spoofed. And the person didn't think, my boss never tells me on phone to do this. And he called back, he reached out. The boss said, I never called you. Sorry. He says, your voice. He says, so be it. I never called you. So they landed in some trouble, and the money was siphoned on to Mexico by the time the government agencies could trace it. So this is all happening. These are very common things. Again, like I said, one needs to be a little alert one needs to know that how legit companies work. So when we get an email from a certain bank asking us to do something, or a telco, we need to understand that they would never ask for sensitive information. They would usually address you by name, and the fishers usually, they just send a generic email usually, but the spear phishing is addressed by name. They're more advanced attacks, less frequent. They have email IDs from official domains, right? If something is coming from a marketing domain, I would rather not believe it too much. Then we have several spelling and grammatical mistakes in email. Again, while we still say that, this is going down because thanks to all the new apps that help the spell checks and everything, even the attackers are sending very, very beautifully crafted emails these days. And then, of course, they don't send unsolicited attachments. So if you didn't ask for the statement, they wouldn't send it. If they didn't subscribe to something, it wouldn't come to you by email. So if something comes to us which is out of the blue, you didn't expect, well, open it with caution. Now that's as an individual. What do we do as a company? How do we take care of that? So some of the things, one, of course, phishing, smishing simulations for the staff. Now, of course, phishing simulation should be done for each staff in the beginning, at least quarterly, and then later on, at least twice a year. This trains the staff and in their mind to respond to such attacks in their subconscious. So we train their subconscious to be able to spot such attacks and respond to them. Phishing simulations we do for senior staff, for key personnel, and we try and see, how they react to such calls. We can even, the platform we use, Aware, can actually connect a call to you from a particular number which could appear to be coming from your bank, your local branch of the bank, because numbers can be spoofed. And then once you pick up, the number is connected by the platform to another sender. I mean, one of our guys who's actually simulating the attack, and he may talk to you as if he's calling from the bank branch, and he wants to know your card number or your date of birth and other sensitive details. I mean, this is one example, but typically when we work for corporates, the test cases are very different. We've done smishing attacks where we sent messages to all the people, and then interestingly, a lot of them respond with their date of birth, month of birth. We don't ask for the full detail because we don't want to collate the PII. We just want to see how they respond, and people are more than happy to share their details. So this is something we need to inculcate as a culture by repeating these simulations. And every time they fail, we need to notify them and say, guys, this is not done. You're not supposed to share such details. There are online awareness trainings. It's convenient. Now technology-based trainings are taking over. Again, a platform like Aware covers that part. Of course, the organizations should deploy the web filter. The challenge is, unless you have proxy on the cloud, if you have the staff working from home, these web filters are not effective if they're only on your office network. So it goes back to the requirement of having alertness in your employees. They need to be careful when they are handling such calls or handling such emails. If they're working from home, it's better to have VPN off to the office, because then it becomes easier to manage the traffic, control it, and identify any attacks over there. Antivirus firewall should be enabled. Compromise assessment is a good idea, because the issue today is, I mean, on a lighter side, we say there are two kinds of companies: one that get breached, others they don't know. So typically, everybody would get breached. The idea is, how fast can you identify you're breached, right? If there's any suspicion, should assess the machines for immediate compromise assessment. Again, we do it a lot with our consulting arm, where we are, doing, delivering these kind of services, where we go and do a full sweep and identify any sleeping, malware sitting there just to wake up one day and start sending data out, or hopping on the network. Because there were some studies that say that it takes more than 350 days for companies to detect a malware on their network, or the breach that has happened. So it's very important to be able to detect and respond as soon as possible. So whenever they're suspicious or at a better frequency, I mean, at least once in a year, there should be such sweep on the network for large companies to see. And of course, so for the security team to be better equipped, we should go for the security trainings platform. Again, EC Council Code-Red is one platform. It's like the Netflix of cybersecurity. We've got thousands of trainings of cybersecurity on a monthly subscription. That's something which could be leveraged by companies to ensure that the tech staff or security staff is adequately skilled, equipped, and trained onto the how to handle the security for the company. And with this, those who are attending this webinar, we promised we will give them a subscription for Aware to protect their company. So once you've registered and given your details, we will work with FICCI to send you, how to get signed up with Aware, free of cost, to do some level of protection for your company, and see how it improves the security posture and the awareness level of your employees. That's all from me for now. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over back to the moderator, Mr. Prahlad.
Thank you so much, sir, for the elaborative presentation and touching upon some common mistakes or modus operandi that are there. I think most of us would have received that a lot of emails, right, in our mailboxes. But having said that, thanks for promising or committing the support through EC Council, Aware platform, and throwing light on Code-Red and other platforms that you have developed. I think the audience would be greatly benefited with this gesture, and I'll request all interested parties to get in touch with Bidit, Sudhir, Sarika's organization to get advantage of these wonderful tools that EC Council has offered, and we can work towards helping you with that. We have some questions on the question board. I'll sort of pick a couple of them because first one, Maninderji, for you is somebody has asked, according to you, what are the entry and exit barriers in terms of cybersecurity for setting up an e-commerce venture? E-commerce has become a common marketplace nowadays, right? So, what are your views and what should be the entry and exit barriers in terms of cybersecurity solution for e-commerce venture?
So I mean, if you're talking about an e-commerce business, which of course could be for any sort of, I understand by e-commerce you mean the retail business to online shopping. You want to provide some products or services. I think the biggest challenge one would face, for me, from a cybersecurity perspective, is not only the real security part, but compliance as well. Because I do understand when you go for e-commerce, you are not only handling personally in PII, personally identifiable information, but also a lot of financial information of your customers, potential customers. Any sort of a breach for you not only puts your company's reputation at risk, but also it puts a lot of people, your customer data at risk, and brings down the confidence level of people doing online shopping. That's why the government and the regulators have been very stringent with all the laws around it. So even though we are a startup and government can relax a lot of laws for startups, but I think when it comes to privacy and security, for me, that would be the biggest risk. Of course, the real security has to be there, but so one part is securing your network and all, and second is demonstrating compliance, which is a cost, which for startups is a big one. So these are the two things I'd say are more important.
Yeah, Vikas, would you like to add anything onto that based on your experience?
Yes, absolutely. I think Maninder pretty much covered it in the right way. I think I would probably say for any organization, for that matter, is to see it why that organization would be a potential target for, for the bad guys, right? And that is a little bit common all across. And then the specificity of the industry comes in. Like, as we mentioned, telcos potentially are a target as an example because they are the super highway of everything. Likewise, when I look at it from an e-commerce standpoint, I think, some of the top ones we could think is, the distrust that it can lead in a potential or existing customer should the e-commerce get breached, right? And it's the most active one. It's on mobile, it's on laptop, it's everywhere. So I think I would probably say the biggest challenge, therefore, could be to continuously prevent any simples. Specifically in e-commerce, you would see there are a lot of integrations that are required with the banks on one side and suppliers on the other side, which technically are nothing but APIs. So the specificity of security nuances only increase if the business is purely online. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vikas. Other two questions which are similar. So I would again come to Vikas, to you, because you have been leading one of the largest team of cybersecurity professionals. I hope you would be expanding that. So one of the member has asked how AI ML plus quantum computing works in the case of cybersecurity, and what are the opportunities for the startups in these areas. I think we are one of the most vibrant startup ecosystem in the world, and that is why this question is very, very pertinent. I would like, Vikas, your views on this.
Sure. Thanks. See, I think first let me try to share where the technology would be applicable and then sort of creates an opportunity. Now, in simplistic term, if we see everything online is generating a lot of data of interactions all across the world. Like, now, when we look at within that the data which is not good from a security standpoint, for example, attack vectors, right, malwares, viruses, right, source of origin where these things are coming on, it is actually very difficult or near impossible for humans to analyze that whole data, correct? So therefore, the augmented intelligence starts to come in, wherein the artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms start to say. In today's, if we do an evaluation of top products, you would see that behind the scenes, all of them are one way or the other using some of these technologies now, right? Because there's immense data. So if I am subscribed, as Maninda mentioned, a customer who's got an email security solution, and there are 10,000 other customers, that particular vendor is harvesting the intelligence from all the companies to strengthen their products using AI and ML, right? So that's one part. Now, for startups, I think the startup ecosystem for security has tremendously changed. I'm trying to recall the name of the website. I think it's called cybersecurityventures.com, which lists down, the new startups in security space. Now, you're right, we've got a great startup ecosystem. In the world, Israel is right now very, very ahead in the security space. We've also seen close to 10 to 15 really good startups in India from security standpoint. So now connecting the two, I think the opportunity to integrate AI, ML and security in a startup, I think the opportunities are there, which revolve primarily around harvesting the technology data that keeps coming in.
Thank you so much. Then the follow-on question is, what are the steps to ensure a career in cybersecurity in India?
No, I think sure. So I would probably start, Prahlad, by saying that whoever is asking that question is doing the right thing. So they say now cybersecurity is job security, right? If you look at from the analysis of last, I was looking at a report of 7 years. There is zero unemployment if a person is in cybersecurity, right? So from a start point, I think one of the things would be to leverage a structured knowledge that's available in this area, right? And I wouldn't shy from saying that, leverage some of the initial certifications that are available around ethical hacking or others. That could be a very structured start point. Equally important will be to understand first what to secure, therefore understand, an operating systems, databases, the basics of the cloud setups, because you know what you need to secure. Now, once you do these two mix, it's a great mixture. We become more sellable of our skills because we have what to secure and we've got a mindset at the fundamental level. So I would say probably leverage those initial structured learning opportunities that exist in the market. And I think we've got our friends on the call who do that very, very fantastically across the world, right? So probably I would, in short, say that.
Yeah, thanks. Maninderji, would you want to add your 2 cents? Because you have been sort of working with these people, hundreds of thousands of them across the globe. I think you are muted, sir.
See, this is something you never learn, even after doing so many online calls and webinars. So sorry. Yeah, so I think to start with, I would always say, I mean, while of course I am representing EC Council, and as I said, that we have fantastic entry-level certifications. We have certified network defender, ethical hacking, and all. But I'll go a step ahead. As a cybersecurity professional and ex-CISO of 2 companies, I would say that it also depends which line within security, because security has many areas. If you are core technical and that is your interest area, then we need to do the technical courses and network defender, ethical hacking forensics investigator, and then the operating system knowledge and all. Absolutely, that is a path for you. If you are not that technical or that's not your interest area, you still want to be in cyber, you can always get into the governance side. You start with certs like 27001 and others, and then you start making your career in that. It depends on aptitude, attitude, and of course your area of interest. But there is tremendous opportunities. All the survey reports say there will be millions of people shortage in the next few years. So you are most welcome in this career. It's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, zero unemployment. So that's a wonderful thing. But having said that, it requires right aptitude and attitude, and also right certification in the first place. So next question, again, Maninderji, I'm coming to you, and then I'll ask Vikas to sort of add 2 cents. So can AI-based DSS track cyber crimes and alert cyber police and investigation agencies in real time?
And if I may ask, what do you mean by DSS? I'm sorry if I don't have that idea. So if I talk about this, I mean, okay, if I say that AI-based solutions, right, track cyber crimes and alert cyber police investigation in real time, the answer is yes. Not only real time, what I do understand, and I was reviewing one such AI-based solution that was implemented. Actually, it was a startup in India itself, and being used by quite a few state police in India. What they do is they have the AI-based algorithm fully trained to use a lot of images and identify what you're looking for. So all your CCTVs which are there, the feed can be fed in. And we've heard China is doing that a lot as well. But I was happy to see that we've done, and this is not today, this is like 1.5 to 2 years back, when the police had used such software to actually find more than 100 lost kids. So the kids that are reported lost, their images are fed into the system, and the system, which has feed from hundreds of thousands of CCTVs across India, looking at those images, it helps them find those kids and locate the location and then recover them for the parents. I mean, this is amazing implementation or use of technology. This is exactly why we need to invest more in this area. And we've been talking about startups in India and the ecosystem. This is getting better by the day. But again, the only thing we need to focus on improving is, which I was again listening to somewhere, is we probably are not doing a lot of innovation there. So I think we need to innovate a lot more in India. If we could do that, I think all these AI, ML, they have tremendous use cases that can be used to fight crime.
Yeah, Vikas, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. I think if I am understanding, I think this DSS is around the decision support system, if that's the question in the context of AI, and I think intelligent decision support system is probably being referenced here. See, I think as with any DSS or IDSS system, I think the essential requirement is that the system should act like a human being, right? Which is look at information, analyze, apply multiple areas of existing prior knowledge, references, and they take some decisions. So the answer is yes. And I think there are certain subtle progress is being made in this area where the automation of security is trying to use that. And so far, it is, but I would probably say, based on my limited knowledge, I think it is only so much right now. And there's tremendous opportunity to leverage that. Right now in the world, what is available is under the umbrella of what is called SOAR, or Security Orchestration and Automated Response, which is subtly playing the role of that decision support system. Is it advanced and intelligent enough where AI is being used? At least not on the front. I don't know, maybe behind the scenes with the vendors, but at least not on the front as we can see. So there's definitely some opportunity there.
Thanks, because one last question. So very common, because the mobile phones, right, in COVID times, it has become very important, especially for the student population. Now they are very much vulnerable to cyber attacks also. So somebody is asking, how can we ensure the digital security of our mobile phones, which is very critical for them. So Vikas, you might want to sort of.
Sure. No, I think the principles of cybersecurity stay the same, right? Which means basically, first of all, be sure and very clear of what you are keeping on the phone, right? I think no matter cyber or not, if it gets in the wrong hands, you have to be sure of what you're keeping there, right? And given at different stages of life, different groups we have, there could be mixed stuff on the phones, which might be based on the level of privacy you're comfortable with should it get breached, right? So I think that's the first step. So be sure of what you're keeping in the open locker of sorts. Second, I think I would say follow the same similar principles, which is do not definitely do not just click on the links that just come as such or seem to be forwarded. There is a tendency to click on it, and that's probably the first and the most risk. It's the same as Maninda was referring in the real world on a laptop. It's the same principle, and we've seen a lot of evidences across the globe where that has been used. So that's, I would say, probably the simple rule number 2. Rule number 3 is nowadays, of course, there are certain opportunities available to what we can call as antivirus of mobile phones. There is no harm in looking at those areas or opportunities as well to strengthen, at least, from a basic standpoint. Second, fourth, again, apply the principle of, least requirements, as in, do you really need all the apps in the first place, and make sure, they are the right ones. There are a lot of misleading apps out there. So I would say the principles are same, as long as whether it's a mobile or a laptop or anything else, if you could follow those principles, you will be safe. And at the end of the day, as I always say, if you get breached, be sure of what you're going to be losing on. So just make sure what you need to keep there.
Excellent, Vikas. So follow the simple principles, right? Whether it is mobile phone or laptop or any other device. Thank you so much. Before we sort of go to Sarika for vote of thanks and concluding remark, one last question for Maninder ji. Sir, is it possible, even though you said you hate word phishing now, but some question is, sir, is it possible to have remote access phishing by any software? And how can we prepare ourselves against the same? So this is one question that came from some section of the audience, please.
You have to unmute, Maninder.
You are again muted.
So again, though, the question which says that remote access phishing, not clear when we are talking about whether the phishing is delivered remotely, because these emails and all are actually delivered all remotely itself, or we're talking about phishing that I'm just trying to understand the problem statement better, because we are referring to remote access phishing. Typically, I mean, for any kind of phishing, it has two components. One, of course, the attack vector, which is either an email, call, or an SMS that is delivered to the user, of course, remotely from known or unknown source, or unknown source pretending to be known. And the second is call to action, when you do what you're supposed to do. Either you click on the link and the malware is downloaded, or you put in your details and the data is fetched, or you transfer the money, or do you perform some action which is required. So these are the two parts of this whole phishing activity. The biggest prevention against this is, as I said earlier, staying alert, being a bit more suspicious, not over suspicious, but if we see something out of the blue, you get an email from someone you didn't expect, you get some request to be performed which never comes, at least not by this way. I mean, one of the cases, actually got from the CEO, from the right email and everything, and he was able to spot it as a phishing because he saw it said delivered from the iPhone. He says, my boss doesn't have iPhone, right? He uses Android. So how can this be delivered to iPhone? So again, being alert, noticing the small things, and being a bit suspicious. And if there is some big action which may have implications, no harm in checking, calling the person, verifying, is it you who has done it? Is it you that sent the email request, or asking me to do this? If we can do these things, I think we are all safe. And that's the culture we want to be inculcated in all the users.
Thank you so much, sir. Being aware, and not only being aware, but being vigilant is what is required. And that is true for the companies also. We have to ensure that everybody, whether he's an IT or non-IT person in the organization, he has to be aware, and also he has to be vigilant. Then and only then we can sort of prevent cyber related incidents in the company as well as an individual also. Thank you so much, both of you, for the brilliant presentation and talk. And thanks to the audience for wonderful questions. Hope they have been answered. We are now going back to Sarika for vote of thanks and concluding remarks as the host of this wonderful session today. Sarika ji, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Adhikari. Thank you, speakers. It was fabulous hearing to both of you, to Mr. Vikas Kapoor and Mr. Maninder Singh. We could see the involvement of the audience with the kind of questions which we had, starting from a startup to a student to talking about the career, and then being vigilant and how to take care of things in the mobile. So you have a plethora of, I would say, a kind of a whole canvas which was available when you were able to answer those questions. But audience, we could see that what the speakers have mentioned, you need to obviously be aware of what you're opening, be vigilant and aware, and obviously keep things which you are required to be keeping in, not everything. So that, and don't try to be opening up any and everything which comes to you. That is very, very much important. And of course, then there are technical aspects which the speakers have tried to explain in their talk during the session. This day we had around 60 minutes of discussion, which we've overshot by now another 15 minutes. So we can see the potential of the discussion this subject has and the interest it carries on. And we definitely agree with our participants as well that this is an area which would definitely require more of talk and awareness along with their participation, so that actually everybody can maintain their cyber hygiene and then actually also promote it amongst their peers, be it at the individual level or at the business level. So that is really, really important. So thank you, speakers, for sharing your insights. And thank you, EC Council, for, of course, letting us know about the various programs, and speakers, the participants who are interested in on what the subjects where the EC Council has covered in. If you have anything specific you would want FICCI to work with you and to take it up with the EC Council, please write to us. Mr. Singh has already mentioned about the special offers which they are given it to the participants this time. So please feel free to avail that offer. And if there's any questions, anything that you want us to take it with them or with any of the panelists, we are happy to take it offline as well. So with this, we come to an end. Thank you, Mr. Adhikari, for moderating this session. And thank you, Mr. Kapoor and Mr. Singh, for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you all for joining in. And with this, I would also like to acknowledge the support we have received from the team of Edvisol as well as the FICCI Secretariat, who has worked together to put up this session. So thank you all for this effort. Thank you, and
Thanks.
see you again soon.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everyone. It's been a pleasure.
So with this, we conclude today's session.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank you.
once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.